Hello and welcome. I'm Leigh-Ann Gerrans and you're watching W News, broadcasting live from the Al Arabiya studios. These are our top stories. Saudi Arabia strikes army vehicles from UAE ships in Yemen over security concerns as the UAE says it's withdrawing. Trump tells Hamas it will face hell to pay if it doesn't disarm as he pushes to move the Gaza peace plan to phase 2. And Trump threatens Iran against rebuilding nuclear or missile programs, saying any aggression could trigger US strikes. Now, Saudi Arabia has conducted strikes on army vehicles from a UAE ship in Yemen over security concerns, after which the United Arab Emirates announced the voluntary withdrawal of its troops. The strikes follow Saudi Arabia's expression of disappointment over UAE pressure on Southern Transitional Council forces near the kingdom's borders. Earlier this month, the STC clashed with government troops and claimed it gained full control of parts of southern Yemen. Saudi Arabia warned that allowing the STC to conduct military operations along its southern borders threatens its national security, calling it a red line. It urged GCC unity and regional cooperation in Yemen and stressed that a lasting political solution requires all parties, including the Southern Transitional Council. Now, Saudi Arabia hopes the UAE will take steps to preserve relations as the Arab coalition releases a video showing 2 UAE ships unloading arms in eastern Yemen. In response, the Arab coalition launched a limited airstrike at a port in Yemen, targeting what it described as foreign military support. Meanwhile, Yemen's leader is demanding the immediate withdrawal of STC forces.
We reiterate our call to the leadership of the Southern Transitional Council to exercise reason, prioritize the higher interest of the Yemeni people, embrace the path of peace, and expedite the unconditional withdrawal of its forces from the governorates of Hadramaut and Al-Mahra.
Following the strikes and condemnation from the kingdom, the UAE's defense ministry announced that it will voluntarily withdraw remaining troops from Yemen. Earlier today, the UAE Foreign Affairs Ministry issued a response to recent concerns, affirming its commitment to regional security and stability and rejecting any actions that could threaten safety. It emphasizes its ongoing efforts to de-escalate tensions in key areas in coordination with partners. The UAE also insisted that recent shipments did not contain weapons and the vehicles were intended for its forces operating in the region. Finally, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs stressed that all developments should be handled responsibly to avoid any further escalation. For more on this, I'm now joined from London by Bader Alqahtani, editor of Gulf Affairs at Alsharq Alawsat. Thank you, Bader, for joining me today. Let's just begin with the UAE has withdrawn remaining forces from Yemen. What do you make of this?
Thank you for having me at the beginning. I think it wasn't the UAE decision to leave what remains or their own forces in Yemen. It was ordered by the president of Yemen, or the acting president of Yemen, the head of the PLC, Dr. Rashad Al-Alimi, who asked UAE to withdraw in 24 hours. And this all escalation happened because of the fund that have been made by the UAE to the STC and the pressure that UAE have shown to the STC to escalate in Hadramaut and Al-Mahra, which is in the Saudi borders. And it doesn't only threaten the Yemeni de-escalating, but it also threatened the Saudi national security and the 700 kilometer of borders of Saudi Arabia. So now the whole Yemeni picture have been redrawn by the updates, and I think we should watch what is going to happen in the ground, because Saudi Arabia have been sent the message clearly to STC forces, which was acting as rebels, not as government, to withdraw from Hadramaut and Al-Mahra before any kind of negotiations or any kind of talks.
And Saudi Arabia has bombed a port in Yemen, as we've been discussing. But can you give us some background to this? Who was targeted and why were they targeted?
I think the operation, as the coalition have announced, was very limited, and it didn't target the port itself, but it targeted the shipment. The military shipment was coming from Al Fujairah, and it was smuggling weapons. And when I say smuggling, because they have turned off the whole communication from the two ships from Al Fujairah to Al Mukalla, and they wait until after midnight to smuggle the weapons and the military vehicles. So if I read the UAE statements, they claim that this vehicles was about to be sent to the Yemeni forces. There is no operations in Hadramaut or even Al-Mahra. There is no military operation anyway. Houthis are so far from that place. And at the same time, if this is if it happened because they have coordinate with the coalition, my sources said there were no permission to any kind of shipment to reach Al-Mukalla from Al Fujairah, and at the same time, if it was legitimate, they will not turn off the communication, and they will not try to change their route, and they will not wait until after midnight to smuggle that vehicle. So at the end, I believe that both statements from Saudi Arabia or UAE have been like contained, and it was only straight to the point about the problem itself. And both sides are referring to each other by the neighbor country or the sister the sister country. So I think it will be limited so far, and it is going to be positive, especially after the withdrawal of the UAE forces in Yemen.
And let's talk a little bit about that, actually, Bader, because after the UAE's decision to withdraw forces, what can we expect to happen next? Because, as you say, things have been contained and limited, and both the statements from the UAE and Saudi Arabia have actually shown that.
I've been following Yemen since day one of the coup in Sana'a since 2014. UAE have sent a very confusing message in the foreign ministry message or statement, because they have said the vehicles were sent to our troops in Yemen. And in 2019, if we remember that, UAE have announced that they withdraw all the troops from Yemen to support peace, and etc., etc. So that's one of the elements that I can see some confusion as an observer to the whole conflict. And at the same time, this type of support, whether to STC or the other groups, it wasn't by today. It has been more than 6 years of the escalation. The Saudi-led coalition tried to contain STC. They tried to contain them in Aden. There were like kind of agreements, Riyadh agreements. There were like Yemeni talks under GCC umbrella in 2022, and that meeting have ended up by transferring the power to a council led by Dr. Rashad Al-Alimi, and STC was represented by Mr. Aidarus Al-Zabidi. Zabidi and the other STC members inside the council, they haven't shown or any kind of appreciation. They have been offered bunch of positions, whether in ministries, deputy ministers, assistant deputy ministers in several governmental bodies. They try to push to get a lot of political gains. They tried to push Dr. Rashad Al-Alimi to give them extra benefits, but I think there is always limits to what they can push. And they did what rebels like Houthi in Sudan or Houthis in northern Yemen. Anything that STC wanted to have in terms of politics, they go outside and they try to get it by military solution. And I don't think Saudi-led coalition and the other Yemen supporters will be happy with this type of steps, especially now Saudi is leading political mediation, and guess what? Houthis are part of this type of talks, and most of the other political Yemeni powers, except STC, who sent their troops to Hadramaut and Al-Mahra, which doesn't have any Houthis or any terrorists or any Muslim Brotherhood as they claim.
Bader Alqahtani, thank you so much for joining us and for your time and analysis. Now, Donald Trump says he hopes to move very quickly to phase 2 of the Gaza peace plan, warning Hamas it will face hell to pay if it does not disarm. Speaking after talks with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Florida, Trump praised Israel's compliance with the plan and said reconstruction in Gaza could actually start soon. For more on this, I'm joined by Jotam Confino, author and Middle East correspondent. Jotam, great to have you on the show. So Prime Minister Netanyahu must be pretty pleased with himself after his meeting with Donald Trump. So was it mission accomplished for Netanyahu?
I would say partially so. Netanyahu got a few, I would say, not gifts, but something that he expected, such as the United States publicly backing a strike on Iran's ballistic and nuclear program if they don't hold both of them. That was something that Netanyahu had hoped that Donald Trump would not only publicly say, but he did it even before they started the meeting. So the meeting started off well. And also Netanyahu was showered with praise. He said that Netanyahu is essentially the reason why Israel still exists today, because he's such a strong wartime leader. And he once again called on the president of Israel to pardon him in his corruption cases. So I would say on those fronts, Netanyahu couldn't have asked for more. But when it comes to Gaza, it's a bit more complicated, because Netanyahu came to Mar-a-Lago to try and convince Trump that allowing Turkish troops to be part of this international stabilization force that will go into Gaza and disarm Hamas, that's just not a good idea. But Trump said that he actually backs this. He publicly said it while looking at Netanyahu. And that is something that's really bad for Netanyahu, but it's really bad for Israel, because Turkey is an ally of Hamas. And also, Trump said that he's thinking very seriously about letting Turkey buy F-35 fighter jets, which is, again, a huge blow to Israel if that happens, because Israel is currently the only country in the Middle East that has these very advanced fighter jets. But I would say overall, Netanyahu came out of this meeting getting a lot of good things, accomplishments, if you can call it that. And of course, for him, it's very important because we're going into an election year in Israel, and all of the praise that was showered on him is obviously going to reflect positively for him on the ground here in Israel.
Yeah, he did get showered with praise, Jotam, that's for sure. But I want to talk to you a little bit about settler violences taking place in the West Bank. There is Israeli expansion and construction in the area, which is illegal under international law. And on this, President Trump says, we don't agree 100%, him and Netanyahu. Is there divergence between the two leaders on this issue?
There is not as much as there was between Joe Biden and Netanyahu, for example, or Bill Clinton and Joe Biden, or Barack Obama, for that matter. Netanyahu had to deal with all four. But Trump is not, he's not supportive of Israeli settlers going amok, running amok in the West Bank, which they are. Hundreds of settlers in the past 2 years have treated the West Bank like the Wild West. They loot, they attack Palestinians, they kill Palestinians sometimes, they kill their sheep, they destroy parts of the West Bank with very few repercussions. This is obviously something that Donald Trump is not supporting, but he's also not, he's not telling Netanyahu that there will be harsh consequences if he doesn't rein it in. He's just not openly supporting Israel's settlement project. He also said that Israel can't annex the West Bank. But again, he's maybe speaking rhetorically, he's condemning these things and not supporting it, but he's not telling Netanyahu that there'll be consequences if he doesn't rein these settlers in.
And the armed wing of Hamas has reiterated that it will not surrender its weapons as long as the Israeli occupation does remain. And I just wondered a little bit, is this main point of contention really a big threat to Donald Trump's ceasefire deal and, of course, to moving to phase 2 of the plan?
It's the biggest obstacle. It's the biggest threat to the ceasefire, to the Palestinians, and it's a threat to Israel. The fact that Hamas is walking back on its promises to disarm is a major threat, because this means that there has to be an international stabilization force or the IDF, one of the two, have to go in and do it by force. And for now, we don't have any countries around the world that are eager to send their soldiers into Gaza and hunt Hamas in civilian areas, because they will experience the exact same thing that Israel did during 2 years of war with Hamas. They will have to find them in schools and hospitals. In all of these areas where Israel was hunting them down, that's what they're going to do. So Hamas is quite clever here, because they know that if they refuse to hand over the weapons, the likelihood of an international stabilization force doing it by force is very small, which means IDF will have to go in and attack Hamas again. And this sounds maybe very counterintuitive. Why would Hamas want that? Because Hamas is riding on a wave of anti-Israel sentiment around the world, and they know that another war between Israel and Hamas inside Gaza will make Israel even more isolated internationally than they already are.
And Jotam, you did touch on this, but I want to ask you a little bit further. Trump says a pardon for Netanyahu is on the way, but it's quite interesting because Herzog's office does dispute that. How unprecedented is it for a US president to interfere in politics and ask for a pardon for Netanyahu? And I mean, it will be a big win for Netanyahu if he gets this because of that election.
I'm not sure if it's so unprecedented for an American president to interfere with Israeli politics. Other presidents have done it more subtle. You know, back when Netanyahu was running against Shimon Peres in the 90s, it was clear that the Clinton administration wanted Shimon Peres to win and not Netanyahu. But it was done in a much more subtle way. What Trump is doing here is extremely unprecedented. He's putting immense pressure on the Israeli president, who is now almost being shamed by Trump for not, acting quicker, or at least if he ends up not granting Netanyahu a pardon, he knows that he will probably face rage from Donald Trump. It's very unprecedented. And I'm not sure that most Israelis like this. They do like Trump very much, but on this particular issue, I think that's my feeling, at least, when I speak to people, that he's out of order, that it's too much to start interfering with a corruption case like this.
Well, Jotam, it's not like Donald Trump to be subtle, but Jotam Confino, thank you so much for joining us. Now, in the same meeting, Trump also warned Iran against rebuilding its nuclear or missile programs, prompting Tehran to promise an immediate harsh response. Take a listen to what Donald Trump had to say.
Now I hear that Iran is trying to build up again, and if they are, we're going to have to knock them down. We'll knock them down. We'll knock the hell out of them, but hopefully that's not happening. I heard Iran wants to make a deal. If they want to make a deal, that's much smarter. You know, they could have made a deal the last time before we went through, you know, a big attack on them, and they decided not to make the deal. They wish they made that deal. So I think, again, they should make a deal. They want to make a deal, but sometimes that doesn't happen.
For more on this, I'm joined from London by Sima Sabet, host of the Sima Sabet Show and Iranian journalist. As always, Sima, lovely to have you on the show. I just want to start with President Trump vowing to knock the hell out of Iran if the nuclear program is rebuilt again. What do you make of this warning and Trump's alignment with Israel on Iran?
I think the warning is very serious. Donald Trump never made a joke about his stance against Islamic Republic. And since day one, he's being against nuclear program of Iranian government, the missile development, and also the proxies in the region has been one of his main priorities. And so far, it seems that the Iranian government doesn't want to back up from any of them. They had missile tests in few cities of Iran during the last few days, right before Netanyahu's trip to the US. So this doesn't send a signal that, oh yeah, we are in a position that we want to negotiate. They say that they want to negotiate with the US, and President Trump also has many times requested that they come to the negotiation table, but without any precondition. And Trump's conditions for having a meaningful negotiation always has been clear with the Islamic Republic. No atomic bomb, no atomic programs, no missile tests, no missile program, no proxies in the region. But so far, it doesn't seem that the Iranian government is backing up from any of them. So far, they haven't still allowed the IAEA inspectors to be in Iran to investigate that what is the scale of the damage after the America's attack. And of course, I mean, if there is any evidence and any information, which I'm sure, I mean, Israelis, they do have a lot of information about what is happening in Iran, as they showed during the war, those information would be taken seriously. And I have no doubt that if there is any credible information that they're still pursuing to have a nuclear weapon, and as we hear from inside Iran, they are developing few sites of atomic sites inside Iran. So yes, I think that there is very much possible and risk of second attack, and also Americans' attack if there is a clear danger of atomic bomb in Iran.
And it's really interesting because I'm just listening to you, speaking to me right now, and that was going to be my next question to you. What evidence does Israel have? But as you say, it's very difficult to know what is happening in Iran. But it is important to point out that Tehran denies pursuing chemical or biological weapons at this stage. But Sima, how destabilizing could renewed strikes on Iran be for the Middle East region? And do you think that Israel is actually pushing for regime change in Tehran?
Well, I guess, I mean, Islamic Republic is the only government is the only state in the region that creates a lot of instability for the whole region. By having proxies here and there in few countries, they have lost so many of their proxies. Like, for example, I mean, now Hamas is in a much weaker situation. In Syria, they have been much, much weaker compared to a few years ago. In Iraq, they have also lost their power to an extent. Hezbollah is out of power to a huge extent compared to a couple of years ago. So I guess, everything is changing in the region, not in favor of Islamic Republic. But of course, there has been a time that Islamic Republic during the 8 years of war with Iraq was pursuing having chemical or biological weapons. But at the moment, I guess the main important elements of the instability or the danger that comes from Iran is the nuclear program and ballistic program. If they are still insisting of having this ballistic and missile program improved inside Iran, well, of course, Israel wouldn't feel safe. And as long as, based on their new doctrine of security, they are not going to look into weakening Iran. So if they are not looking into weakening Iran, this means that, yes, they will continue our regime change plan, or they will have another attack. For the first round of attack that we saw in Iran during the 12 days, many of the military commanders, many of the scientists, they were killed in the first 2 days of attack. So it means that they do have access to a lot of information from inside Iran.
And also, there are reports of a third day of protests happening today in Tehran, and this is over the economic situation in the country. What is happening on the ground, and what more can you tell us about these protests taking place?
As you said, it's a third day of demonstrations in Iran. It started in Tehran Bazaar, but it developed into few areas of Tehran. So far, on the first day, we had about 14 different areas of Tehran which people had demonstrated. Later in the evening, it spread into a few other cities, which police used tear gas in order to try to somehow send them away. And today, the government was, the spokesperson for the government for this, for Iranian states said that they want to negotiate with the protesters. This is the first time that we are hearing such a thing. But at the same time, there has been clashes here and there. The main group that they were added into the demonstrators were students in various universities in Iran, and especially in Tehran, in various faculties and departments and universities. They came out, they had clashes with the security forces. And of course, the Iranian government failed to do every right steps that they could take during the last few years, and specifically during the last few months. After they had a snapback, they tried to decrease the influence and level of importance that it had for the economy. And now, yes, 2 days ago, the president was talking into the parliament and said that, we cannot pay the salaries. Where would I bring it? So they failed to change anything in their behavior, in their plans. They failed to have a new economic, at least to the way that it would make it possible for people just to have a normal bread. And for God's sake, Iran is a very, very rich country. So I guess this is the main reason that people are so angry. And even on the social media, you see that people are talking about disappointment, lack of hope. They don't know how to cope with life. And the slogans in the demonstrations are not only about how they are going to survive. It's mainly against the government. It's mainly requesting for the Khamenei to go, is dead to dictators. And also they were chanting slogans in favor of Reza Pahlavi, the former Prince of Iran.
Sima, Sabet, thank you so much for joining us, for joining me and talking to us this evening. Let's take a look at some of the other stories making the headlines today. Bangladesh's first female Prime Minister, Khalida Zia, and a longtime rival of Sheikh Hasina, has died at the age of 80 after a long illness. She rose to power after her husband was killed and became a leading political figure despite years in prison and house arrest. Zia stayed active in politics and had planned to run in February's election. She is remembered for her role in advancing democracy and women's leadership in Bangladesh. Australian police say the two gunmen behind the attack that killed 15 people at Bondi Beach were not part of a terrorist cell. Authorities say the father and son acted alone and did not receive any training in the Philippines. Police say investigation is ongoing and further evidence may still emerge. Ukraine has denied allegations that it carried out a drone strike targeting Russian President Vladimir Putin's residence. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov claims Kyiv launched the attack using 91 long-range drones. Moscow says it is now reviewing its position on peace negotiations. The US has carried out a strike on what it described as a dock area linked to Venezuelan drug trafficking. President Donald Trump says there was a major explosion at the site where he claims boats were being loaded with drugs. If confirmed, the strike would mark the first known US military operation inside of Venezuela. Eurostar has resumed its train services after the Channel Tunnel closed for hours due to power supply problems. Passengers were urged to postpone their journeys as severe delays are indeed expected. And Syria has unveiled a new national currency which will be introduced gradually from the new year. President Ahmed al-Sharaa presented the new banknotes, saying the move aims to strengthen the Syrian pound. The currency has sharply lost value after years of civil war and economic collapse that followed the end of the al-Assad regime. Now, the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations is currently taking place in Morocco. This is the second time the country has hosted the event, which takes place every 2 years. The Ivory Coast are reigning champions after a stunning comeback to beat Nigeria in 2024. And for more on this, I'm joined by MENA football broadcaster Joe Morrison. Joe Morrison, you're in the studio with me. Brilliant to have you. I just want to start with something. This is not my expertise. It's not my wheelhouse. It's yours. So what is significant about this tournament in comparison to the previous ones that we've had?
Well, it's the first one to start in December. Traditionally, it's always been January. And it's the penultimate one before they go to a 4-year, which I think is quadrennial. Is that right? Is that the right word? Every 4 years.
Every 4 years.
They're going to go to every 4 years instead of biennial. So that's the difference, really, from the previous ones.
I do not know my biannual and my quadrennials, but I trust you. So why is it every 2 years?
Money.
Unlike FIFA? What is it
Money.
about? Is it all about
money, Leigh-Ann? It's money. It's the dough. It's the cheese. It's the wonga. If you have it every 2 years, obviously you can generate more sponsorship instead of every 4 years. And remember, FIFA have been talking in the last couple of years about taking the World Cup every 2 years. So it's all about the money. More sponsorship, more broadcast revenue, more ticket sales. So going to 4 years, they'll lose that. But they're talking about putting in place instead a Nations League, which will be every year to make up the difference.
But that's going to be quite difficult for the footballers, isn't it? If it goes to every 4 years from every 2, they will obviously lose out on pay themselves, or not so much?
No, it doesn't really work like that. I mean, I'll tell you who will benefit will be the clubs, because this has always been a big bugbear, especially English Premier League clubs. They have to release these players. And of course, the Christmas period is always a very busy period of fixtures. There's Premier League games tonight, for example, and they have to lose those players to AFCON. By the way, AFCON, not Comic-Con. One's in Las Vegas, the other one's in Morocco.
Morocco, yes.
They have to lose those players every 2 years, so it's always been a problem.
And then let's talk about that, because are there any big names that we see in the Premier League and around the world that people would recognise playing in AFCON at the moment?
Oh, yeah, I mean, the obvious one is Mo Salah from Liverpool. Whether he'll be there after the January window, who knows? Watch this space.
And a few cheeky words, Mo Salah, yeah.
I mean, as far as this region is concerned, Sadio Mane, Al Nassr, he plays for Senegal. Riyad Mahrez, who plays for Al Ahly in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, he plays for Algeria. Plus, you have others like Nicholas Jackson at Bayern Munich, Brian Mbeumo at Manchester United. So there's a lot of names that football fans around Europe in particular, but also around the globe, would know about.
And would be keen to watch. Who are the favourites this year? And also, is home advantage important? So who is likely to go through from the group stages?
You're asking me to put my neck on the line. Look, you talk about home advantage. That's a brilliant point. Morocco, home advantage, very, very strong, and a team that'll go far in the World Cup next year. The current holders, Ivory Coast, you'd expect them to go far. Nigeria, strong. They were finalists, as you mentioned at the beginning. You'd expect them to go far. So, yeah, there's a few strong teams.
And for everyone watching, I am Zimbabwean, born in Zimbabwe, you know, a true Zimbabwean girl. There's been a lot of chat on my Facebook today. And I want to know how Zim are doing.
Badly.
Oh, are they?
They're going to go nowhere. Ninguno, nada, nothing. Mafi.
No help at all. There's no hope for Zimbabwe.
They won't make it out of the group. What have they got at the moment? 1 point?
I think so. Yeah, but apparently on Facebook I did say that, you know, we can't say the whole of Zimbabwe have lost. You know, there's only so many players in the team. So we'll move on from what's happening in Zimbabwe. But to like a more serious topic away from football, obviously, yesterday, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what happened with Anthony Joshua. We got the story yesterday and we were reporting on it. It was very shortly after it happened, so more details are emerging. And it is a pretty shocking situation and scenes that came out of Nigeria. How do you think something like this is going to impact him personally and emotionally? Because we know the two that died are very close friends of his and obviously helped him for not a lot in the boxing ring. Yeah,
they were there from the beginning, pretty much, of his career, or almost the beginning. It's a difficult question. Physically, he'll recover from this. And thankfully, it seems like he hasn't been hurt too badly. We're still waiting for more medical tests, etc. But it seems on first glance that he's okay physically. Mentally, you have no idea, Leigh-Ann. I mean, he's just banked $60 million from the Jake Paul fight. Money all of a sudden becomes irrelevant in a situation like this when you've lost two very dear friends, two close colleagues as well. He was hoping for a big heavyweight unification bout against Tyson Fury, possibly next summer, autumn. Will that go ahead? I mean, we've seen it in the past when Mike Tyson lost Cus D'Amato, his mentor. He went off the rails. So you just don't know. Mentally, you just don't know. We'll have to wait to see. And what does it mean for the heavyweight division next year? You mentioned that bout that he was hoping to have with Tyson Fury. A lot of people have been speaking about that. Obviously, we saw Joshua in the ring with Jake Paul. Some people saying he'll be ahead of Tyson Fury. Tyson wouldn't have fought for months when they get into that ring. But I wonder if we're going to see something a little bit different. Well, in terms of serious contenders, he'd kind of fallen off the landscape a little bit, the boxing landscape in the last couple of years. Then had come back and had seemed to find a new vigor and a new energy and a new focus on going for those titles and going for the biggest fights. That's now a question mark. Will he have that same vigor, that same energy and that same focus after just having lost two dear, dear friends and two of his team as well? I don't know. I really don't know. And obviously, he's still under observation, but they seem to think that he should be okay. But Joe, thank you so much for bringing me an update on that story. Joe Morrison, as always, thank you very much. Thank you, Leigh-Ann. Now, let's take a look at the top business news.
American singer Beyoncé has been declared a billionaire by Forbes magazine. Her entry makes her the fifth musician to join the world's wealthiest people list. The elite group also includes Taylor Swift, Rihanna, Bruce Springsteen, and Beyoncé's husband, Jay-Z. China is cracking down on AI firms to protect kids. Under the new regulations, authorities aim to stop chatbots from giving advice that could lead to self-harm or violence and from producing content related to gambling. The rules will apply to all AI providers operating in the country. And that's all from us on W News. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, of course, follow on X, and we'll be back in a couple of hours' time with W News Extra. Goodbye and thank you for watching.